We start with the Hawthorn Footy Club. It had it won on the weekend and its demise came a little bit unexpectedly. The tactics late in the game I want to talk to you about, Kane, in particular. But we'll start with Sam Mitchell after the game, ongoing conservative in the last quarter and the resting of CJ early in the game.
You know, it wasn't our plan to play in a defensive manner. We would have loved to continue to score and find a way, and that's our growth. I'm sure one of the learnings from the game. I haven't finished ruminating on it yet, but thinking about how we can find ways to score when we're in front, because the natural instinct is to tighten everything up and play conservatively. CJ's numbers, his running numbers were ginormous, and we sort of didn't really want that. You know, the chance of re-injury once you get significant fatigue increases, so we thought we needed to probably make the call with him, and so that meant we had to make a move, and I kind of wanted him at both ends.
They would have thought they had the game won, really. At three-quarter time when CJ went off, they would have thought we're comfortable here, we can get him off. But what about the mistakes they made? 4 goals, 6 to 1 point. Mitchell has to spoil that through. He doesn't. And Rioli kicks the goal. So even the Hardwick moved back, so he kicks the ball in. And I just wondered, did Hardwick think he was Tom Stewart for a quarter or something like that? He didn't need to pick anybody up. He's coming off 5 goals. The ball goes back in, just too far off, and then teams panic and spoil. So 23 to 4 entries. Sam Mitchell's made a mistake. This one will haunt him for a while. Newcombe gets pushed under the ball. Why does Day give Butters so much room in the centre bounce? Like that'll haunt them. They should be pushing their men under the footy. It had to be the perfect play. It was. Blake Hardwick, again, this has to be the perfect spoil. Burne-Jones looks at him and says, yeah, you want to be good with this spoil because I'm staying down. Well, I may as well take a risk. He's then out the back. And I also asked, why doesn't Blake Hardwick use his hands? Why is he using his feet? So there's a lot of mistakes there.
Why did he go back, do you think? Well, he kicked 5. He was the most influential player on the ground. He's been kicking a good kick 4 the other day.
I think it was a safe choice. They maybe thought, who's the logical with CJ going off? But
did he go too conservative too early?
Absolutely, 100%. They need to kick another goal or two, kick a few more, and that would have just killed the life out of Port Adelaide. So I wouldn't have thought he'll sleep for 3 or 4 days, Sam Mitchell.
They were fantastic for 3 quarters, it must be said, Hawthorn in their building. But do you think, you've been his biggest fan, Sam Mitchell, do you concede he went too defensive too early?
Yeah, I thought he had a poor last quarter in the coach's box, and hard to argue with anything that Laudo has shown. It's not to say that they're not building, and I thought their performance for 3 quarters was enormous. They came with a plan, they executed, so they would be bitterly disappointed and he won't sleep. But I just thought he missed an opportunity as well, Sam Mitchell. The moment was to come down to the interchange bench and coach from the bench in that moment. When you know that momentum is going against you, and he's a coach's box coach, and that is fine, and I agree with that. But look at the difference with Ken and communication with his players. We've heard Ross speak about his frustrations with the lack of the runner. If Mitchell was there, he may have been able to come to the interchange and the sideline and instruct his forwards to hold. His forwards were coming far too far up at stoppage, so when they won the footy, there was nothing to kick to. So in hindsight, I think that was an error, and halfway through that quarter, he should have noticed momentum, came down, and that may have shifted things for his players.
Kane, you were savage last week in your Age column on the 666 rule. Sam Mitchell, don't think agreed with you, nor did Scott Pendlebury. This is what they said.
Well, this is the article first, Carrie. So the reason I was savage on it, and when you get a result like that last night, you know, the critics come for you and say, oh, well, you wouldn't have got that result if you didn't have the 6-6 and 6, and that is fine. So what you get with one miracle performance, I think you lose with coaching, innovation and strategy. And that was, you know, the increase of a 0.5 of a point from scoring at centre bounce. But I think Sam Mitchell did agree with me. I'm not sure Scott Pendlebury did.
I think if we're winning, then the 6-6-6 rule gives the opposition a way to change the dynamic of the game, and I think you see probably a couple more blowout because you can't get yourself back into it. If they're coming out the front of stoppage, etc., you can't support your defence, and you can't do anything flary and attacking either.
You know, it is good 6-6 and 6. I'm not sure the scoring hasn't jumped a huge amount, but it definitely feels like sides are trying to attack a bit more. And certainly, if you can, you know, even just get the territory from centre bounce out the front door, explode forward, then you can lock it in. You mightn't score on the first entry, but you're probably going to score next.
Kane, where I disagree with you is I think coaches were killing the game by too much strategy. I think this is tied one arm behind their back and doesn't allow for them to do things. The game was unwatchable 5 years ago.
So much more exciting.
Yeah.
For point, but you may say that, and that's the consensus. That's the consensus view. But we're talking about 0.5 of a point.
Don't you think the game's better though?
No, I don't, and it's a small element. We still saw
there's more
Hawthorn.
drama, there's more pageantry.
We still saw Hawthorn have 14 players inside Port Adelaide's forward 50, so you're still going to get that.
But would Port have won the game without the 6-6-6 rule?
No, they may not have, but it didn't prevent Port scoring with Sam Mitchell parking the bus, but you lose the speedy half forward coming in off the back, and you can innovate with your wings and you can isolate a forward who's red hot to a matchup. And it wasn't just 6 and 6. I spoke about the stand rule, scoring from kick-ins is down since they've made those changes. So I just think anything that is manufactured like that is not always good for the game.
In the meantime, Port Adelaide have a lot of problems, but they've had a win, and they know they've got a lot of problems. Ken Hinkley is a man coaching. Here he is against Geelong after that narrow win and a big start but a poor end, coaching for his career, isn't he? And then, of course, against Hawthorn. It's going to be hard to contain him, isn't it? It is so obvious what's going on
Stakes
here.
are so high for him.
They're huge, aren't they? I mean, do you have a view on is it sustainable to be coaching on the edge with the wave of emotions that he's clearly showing?
Well, it is clearly work going down to the bench, which he started at the beginning of last year. I think a week or two after Warren Treadray said that the relationship had become untenable. They're now in the top 4. So it's all ahead of them, really.
Won't be a matter where they finish, though. It'll be a matter how they go when the down starts.
Yeah, it all happens in September, but you've got to get there and qualify for that to happen.
I think he feels under enormous pressure.
Yeah, I think everyone.
What we're seeing at the end of games is a release of pressure.
What coach doesn't at the moment, but they got to coach this hard because it was a really ordinary performance for 3 quarters, and there's no escaping that. This vision here, they've become Lordo far too easy to score on transition. So this is a stoppage in the back half. Just count the missed tackles if you like. Count the lack of chase. That press and missed tackle from is a real worry. There's no urgency, there's no pressure, and this is against the side that is rebuilding in the bottom 4. Easy goal, walk in from the goal square. Look at this from kick-in. Like, where's the communication? Clearly that is the open side, and this is what Hawthorn were doing with that dare in wet conditions in the first 3 quarters of this game. This is a concern. The hardest position to score is from a kick-out, and Port Adelaide in transition continually gets scored against. So, yep, they escaped and they won almost the unwinnable, but this is a game where you go, that was unacceptable for 3 quarters against a side, and they must coach that hard, and in particular, that area of their game's a worry.